In 1942, during the height of World War I, a plane with 3 American pilots flies over the southern part of the Pacific Ocean. Commander Harold Dixon, Bombardier Tony Postula, and radio man Gene Aldrich. While on a patrol mission, they decide to return to the aircraft carrier. Upon arriving at the expected location of the ship, they are unable to find it. The commander orders a bomb to be dropped to lighten the plane and informs the crew that they are low on fuel. After double-checking the coordinates, they attempt to adjust their route but still find nothing. Due to the lack of fuel, the commander instructs the crew to prepare for a water landing and asks the pilots to put on life vests. The landing is too harsh, causing one of the pilots to break his nose. The plane is drifting on the water and is about to sink, so they must leave it as soon as possible. The commander gets out, but the crew members, panicking, cannot unfasten their belts. Finally, underwater, they manage to free themselves. All the pilots swim to a small life raft and try to inflate it. The pump is broken, and it takes them a long time, during which they lose their only flashlight. Eventually, they manage to inflate the raft, but now face a new challenge: climbing into it. This proves extremely difficult, but by helping each other, they finally get onto the tiny raft. In the boat, the commander meets his team for the first time. The men shiver from the cold but believe they will soon be found. In the morning, the young pilots, not fully grasping the severity of the situation, continue to joke and laugh, confident that they will be rescued soon. The commander also does not show much concern, saying that they need to divide the lookout zones and carefully watch the sky to avoid missing a passing plane. After some time, they indeed spot a plane, but unfortunately, they have no means to signal it. The commander had reminded them to take the necessary items for rescue, but in their panic, they took nothing. The plane does not notice them and flies away. The boys convince themselves that it will return soon, but the commander coldly explains that it was their only chance, and in wartime conditions, no one will search this area twice. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Harold Dixon declares himself the captain of the raft and insists on strict obedience. His first order is to turn out all pockets and see what they have for survival. As a result, they find 1 water bag, pliers, wire, string navigational items, and a pistol. The commander orders them to throw out their shoes to avoid wearing out the raft, but he decides to keep his own, and he begins accusing the radio man of providing false information. Tony and Gene spend time talking, mostly dreaming about food, while the commander lies off to the side, planning their next steps. He assigns the pilots to take turns on night watch. When it is his turn to relieve Gene at night, the commander decides to go to the bathroom. However, with water being a valuable resource, he decides to drink his own urine. On the second day, the men look even more exhausted. Their small lifeboat slowly drifts over the waves in an unknown direction. The commander roughly estimates their location and direction of movement, but the distance is measured in thousands of miles. They are being carried towards the Hawaiian Islands, and the commander hopes they might stumble upon a small cluster of friendly islands sooner. The pilots are extremely hungry. Gene suggests trying to fish. They dismantle one of the stores of the pistol and use the spring as a hook and a piece of red cloth as bait. Casting their improvised fishing rod into the water, they feel something biting. The men pull the rod up, only to retrieve the line without the hook. It seems there is someone underwater who is even hungrier than they are. Tony muses that they might be awarded a medal when they get out, but the commander pessimistically remarks that they are more likely to face a court-martial and be charged for the lost plane. Tony retorts that no one is to blame, but Gene hints that there is clearly someone at fault. Glancing at the commander, Gene grows tired of unsuccessfully trying to catch fish and decides to swim, hoping to find something edible. He puts on a life jacket and jumps into the water. The commander warns that it is better to stay near the boat, as there may be sharks in the open water. Hearing this, Gene immediately returns to the lifeboat. Another sunset approaches, incredibly beautiful, but the pilots can only think about food. The next day, the men remember why they chose this field. It turns out Tony is a good mechanic, and the commander sarcastically remarks that perhaps Tony is to blame for the crash due to incorrectly confirmed data. The following day, Tony's condition worsens. He wants to drink seawater, but the commander strictly forbids it. It has been 5 days, and they wonder why they haven't died without water. The commander explains that they move very little and drink their urine, which is why they are still alive. Suddenly, he remembers that he has a pencil in his pocket. Using his knowledge and the available instruments, he draws a map to roughly understand their location. The commander assures them they are heading in the right direction, which boosts their spirits. They create a sea anchor to stay on course. After some time, Gene decides that a little help from God wouldn't hurt and suggests they all pray together for rain. After that, they sing funny songs to lift their spirits. The heat causes inflammation and redness of their skin. At night, Tony has a nightmare about drowning. He wakes up happily to find it has started raining. The pilots rejoice, collecting rainwater in a bag and greedily drinking every drop, which extends their journey and their lives. Gene has been unsuccessfully trying to catch fish for a week, and his patience is running out. In desperation, he takes out a knife and decides to try to cut the small fish swimming near the boat. The captain, fearing the boat might get damaged, orders him to put the knife away, but Gene ignores him and starts furiously slashing at the water. After several strikes, he unexpectedly announces that he has punctured the boat, but it turns out the knife has struck a shark. With great effort, he manages to pull it out of the water and hold it, and most importantly, they now have bait for fishing. The boat is full of blood, and the captain, squeezing it overboard, attracts even more sharks. Now they are surrounded by predators. At night, the pilots have nightmares again. Gene decides to wash his face, forgetting the danger, and puts his hands in the water. The sharks quickly respond. Tony starts shooting at the water, trying to scare off the predators, but the captain demands he stop firing. Gene gets injured, with shark bite marks on his hand. Tony bandages his hand with his neckerchief. At dawn, the pilots greedily drink water from the bag. During the day, they pray for their rescue, and at night, they watch the stars. Sometimes sharks swim nearby, but fortunately, they leave the men alone. Each day, the pilot's condition worsens. One day, Gene spots something on the horizon, but unfortunately, it turns out to be a mirage. Their third week in the ocean begins. Tony gazes thoughtfully at his pistol. Gene takes the weapon from him, aims it at an albatross that has landed on their lifeboat, and shoots. The bird, sitting next to the commander, falls dead. The commander, awakened by the shot, immediately dives after the albatross. At that moment, a shark appears nearby. Dixon, mustering all his strength, hurries back to the lifeboat and manages to climb aboard just in time, avoiding an attack by the predator. The shark swims right under them and starts circling their lifeboat. The men are so hungry that they start eating the raw albatross meat, comparing its taste to chicken. Tony, in despair, looks at the 3 remaining bullets in his hand and then throws them into the ocean. At night, the commander has nightmares about the crash again. Waking up, he scolds the pilots for all sleeping and not keeping watch over the sea. Gene refuses to take a watch. He looks very bad, his body severely sunburned under the scorching sun. The pilots also question the commander about the data he used to draw the map. It turns out the commander used his guesses. According to his calculations, they should have encountered the islands 4 days ago. Gene blames the commander, saying it was his mistakes that led to the crash and now their lives are in danger. The commander recalls what actually happened and admits that he dozed off at the helm for a few minutes, which caused them to lose their course. He realizes the mistake he made and sincerely repents to the pilots, admitting he doesn't know how to ask for forgiveness for his actions. The men see his sincerity and begin to cry together. Despite the difficulties, they continued to use the map drawn by the commander. The commander asks for a knife and cuts up his boots to make improvised paddles for rowing. After a few days, thirst torments them again, and Gene begins to doubt they will make it out alive. On the 30th day, the pilots look even worse. It's becoming difficult not only to move but even to talk. They continue to row with their last strength. Tony feels the worst. Suddenly, they notice clouds on the horizon and realize they will soon have water. However, the rain turns into a terrible storm. Waves start to overwhelm them, and the commander is thrown out of the boat. He manages to get back, but he sees a huge wave that capsizes their lifeboat. The commander and Gene are safe, but they don't see Tony. They call out to him, thinking he is drowned, but soon they spot him near the boat, unharmed. They manage to right the lifeboat and climb back in. The next morning, they lie half dead under the scorching sun, having lost all their belongings in the storm. Tony wonders what will happen if one of them dies, and they begin to jokingly discuss how they would carve and eat the body without a knife. Deciding to change the subject, they start talking about their loved ones, and hallucinations begin. Summoning his last strength, Tony gets up and starts paddling with his hands, hoping their efforts will lead to rescue. The following morning, the commander tries to wake Tony, but he shows no signs of life. After much effort, Tony finally opens his eyes and whispers that he hears music. The commander, despairing, begins to lose hope and, despite the prohibitions, drinks seawater, worsening his condition. Suddenly, Gene notices something green on the horizon and tells the others it could be islands. There Joe knows no bounds, and they begin rowing with all their might, although they soon realize the current is already carrying them in the right direction. Approaching the island, waves cast them onto the shore. They lie on the blessed ground, savoring the long-awaited rest. The commander carefully examines the island and sees that it is not Japanese and has small structures. Elated, they stand up, take one last look at their rescue raft, and head inland, hoping to find help and final salvation. This story is based on real events. At the end of the film, viewers see photos of the very pilots who fought for their lives and survived. Thus ends this amazing film. Please leave comments on whether you liked it, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching.